Hello everyone, welcome to our Let's Play series of Disco Elysium. This is Colonel RPG as usual, and I'm very happy that you chose to join me today as I read arrête over there, which I believe means back, but as in back off, rather than the back of something. I think for it to be the back of something, it would be with the E at the end. So arrête, pronounced the same, maybe? Anyway. It's me. Did I do the intro already? Because I get distracted. We're talking to the scab leader over here, who is an honest scab, and also a member of a paramilitary organization. And I say paramilitary here, the game hasn't treated them as such. They're just full-on military. The reason why I say paramilitary is because they're not government-owned. They're private contractors. But the distinction there is sort of irrelevant. He says, "Fucking bug," he breathes out slowly, his giant chest deflating and his mouth slightly open. You hear a tiny rattle, a small radio cracking somewhere. An earpiece? I'm going to interpret that as a yes, says our rhetoric. Not the earpiece, the fucking bug. There's a tribunal, and it won't be long until it's ready. How about you fuck off now, huh? Okay, of course, the lieutenant says, his voice a soothing calm. Sure, he looks at you. There could be weapons aiming at us right now, says our esprit de corps. Somewhere above, in the buildings, the other merc. Don't push this, is thinking. This is not the time. Okay, I'm gonna back off, but I'm gonna push it. I think you may be able to help me. Oh. The man's breathing steadies, but his eyes are still narrow. Slowly, he's trying to get his right to work dance back on. I think you may be able to help me decipher some tattoos. I'm gonna take the picture. This is gonna result in me dying. Don't think so, he grunts, barely glancing at it. Suddenly, this feels like a really, really bad idea, says our Inland Empire. It is. I know that. You don't need to tell me that. It's also a medium success, which means that it is a really, really, really bad idea. So I can give him the photo, or... That's just giving him the photo. Okay, so that's an option. They were on the body of the man who was hanged behind the cafeteria there, or... It was on your colonel... We're investigating a murder. These tattoos were on the victim's body. Let's go with that. Silence. He takes the photo. Gray eyes dart, double space, back and forth on the glossy surface. His face isn't moving. Hard as stone, but beneath it, you see dead flesh in colorful rivers of polychrome, melting skin and air. That was our empathy saying. It sounded like our Inland Empire. After a while, he cranes his head side to side and sighs. Fucking loincloths really did him in. Loincloths? Yeah. Can you tell me what the tattoo means? What it means? He points to one tiny star in the web of lines away from the man's heart, almost on his stomach. I can tell you what this one means. Only one. He squints at it. It's so small. You want to hear what happened here? No? Your colonel is deep in the bush here. Deep in fucking bush. In Banaital 41, monsoon season, is on a reconnaissance mission. They spent a month behind enemy lines, scouting kipped villages. Nothing but fucking bugs and snakes for fun. Men are getting restless. There's talk of switching employers. He licks his lips. Oh, that's not him saying. He licks his lips as if drunk suddenly. With some strange emotion, says our pain threshold. This is about to get really graphic. Yes, I figured it was going to get really graphic. That's why I said no, even though I clicked on yes. Last moment to back off. Let's not interrupt him. Hopefully this is not going to do physical damage to me, otherwise I die. I don't, but... Our boy is only a captain then, but he knows how these men think. If they don't see action soon... His voice gets strangely quiet, a long, long way from right to work. His gaze pierces the paper. At dawn, he comes upon two kips breeding in the bushes by the river. Or maybe they weren't breeding. Maybe they were just making eyes at each other. I like to think they were breeding. Oh, he said... I mispronounced it, and I misread it as well. They were fucking. That's what he means. He says breeding because he's talking about them as if they were animals. And that's... I mean... It's not a conscious decision here. He's not thinking to himself, oh, I'm going to talk about them as if they were animals. And I'm going to say breathing instead of fucking. No, it's just internalized racism, most likely. Because this sounds like a racial slur. And I think that's the whole thing, the whole shtick over here. This might be just a I was gonna say it when I started reading this, but I didn't. But I'm gonna say it now. This might be a straight reference or a straight pick, a straight sort of retelling of real life crimes of war. War crimes? War crimes is how you say it in English. And I was thinking specifically when he says about switching employers and stuff like that. I was actually thinking about the Vietnam War. There's stories not with mercenaries, but just with American soldiers. Basically in Vietnam, one of the reasons there were so many civilian casualties. Well, I'll say civilian casualties. That's not how we should say it. One of the reasons the American army murdered so many Vietnamese civilians, that's how it should be said, is that the funding for war was proportional to the number of kills, because of like politics in the United States. The relationship between the actual on the ground hostilities and what goes on back home in the Senate is I'm not learned enough to know about that, but I've heard interviews and I've heard I never read anything specifically, but I've heard bits and pieces here, and it's just here and there, and it's mad to think about basically tiny things like I think it was who was the president, or one of the presidents anyway, that one that got impeached but then didn't actually get ousted. He quit because of some just basically illegal things. I think I don't remember the name. Anyway, the point is politics were involved, and basically during the second part of the Vietnam War, the funding for the war effort was dependent on the number of casualties inflicted on the enemy. But those didn't account for civilians that weren't the enemy. But if you just said that they were, then it did account for it. And so, yeah, there's some truly horrible stuff that happened in Vietnam. And that's the one I'm thinking of. There's a lot of examples. I'm just thinking Vietnam because this sort of all feels like it. It's definitely a very... the nature of war itself has changed considerably since World War II. Because of really the training of the soldiers. It's a complicated thing to tell a very long story short. Wars before and up to World War II were not fought, even though they are usually dramatized as being fought to the death and just sort of like people going to war just to kill a lot of soldiers. That's not actually the reality in the field. The vast majority of soldiers, we're talking like 80 to 90% of the soldiers, didn't even shoot to kill. I think it was like in World War I, I think they found out that 50% of the soldiers didn't ever fire a single shot. The vast majority of the ones that didn't actually shoot to kill. And when you get into that, that's why I don't want to tell. It's a long story, but when you get into that, it actually starts making a lot of sense. The powers that be understanding why that is what led to the way soldiers are trained today, which is something called conditioning, where they're conditioned to not have to think about killing another human being, and just doing what they're supposed to do in a war scenario, which is shooting to kill. So instead of, among other things, instead of training with the bullseyes, they started training with silhouettes that show up and go back down. That's part of the training, and other things related to the training that do change the war considerably. And Vietnam War already was at that point, even though it happened relatively close to the end of World War II. Even the Gulf War? Was it the Gulf War that happened before the Vietnam War? I'm just thinking of wars by the United States here, even because the United States is also one of the forerunners of the development of this new way of training soldiers. Not that the other countries don't do that, and they do, but it's just the United States is a little bit further along in just sort of, this is basically screwing people up because, well, they get PTSD. It's not just because they get shot at and get to see their friends blown up and stuff like that, although that is also part of the fact. It's just that soldiers are subjected to extreme levels of stress just on the training alone, because they just need to change the way people they think. But it's pretty complicated. Let's see what he says about that. About what he did. So we shot the boy. Oh right. They were fucking. Apparently they were kids. Okay, because boy and girl. Maybe. Yeah, probably wouldn't talk about grown people like that. Anyway, we shot the boy. He was useless, but the girl, she was nice. A little fat, you know, but not too old. I'm gonna say nothing. This is gonna get our morale down, isn't it? She was quite the entertainment for the week she lasted. Expired in the hands of Sarge Mason, the kind of guy who would make chief there. He nods towards the man on the gates. Shit his pants and... Oh, right. The kind of guy who would make that chief up there, measure head, shit his pants, and cry like a bitch. God. He suddenly bursts out laughing. Mason couldn't let go. Cut the tits off her cold body and fucking ate them. Said primitive spirits were watching over him now. Suddenly the laughter... Oh, that's the narrator. Suddenly the laughter stops. Drowned in a creek a week later. Spirits my ass. Our physical instrument says something stirs in your stomach. I thought it was going to be endurance, but then again, endurance is a Nazi skill, so maybe it wouldn't be endurance. It's kind of a weird thing, because, you know, it's me about to throw up or something like that. Our empathy says, the story must have stirred up some conflicting emotions. The man looks tired for a second. There's a word on the tip of your tongue, colorless and odorless. It's... well, evil. Oh, and by the way, before I continue with that... I'm going to say that, actually. I'm going to go with evil. Before I continue with that, yes, very graphic and bad and evil. I'm sort of surprised they didn't actually go for a specific, like, a little bit... not that this hasn't happened in war, because it has... but a little bit more specific. I was thinking, just as an example, because I was thinking specifically of the Vietnam War, just as an example. I was thinking there was a, I think the anniversary is coming up. I think it's in August. At the time of recording, it's coming up, so it might not be when you're watching this episode. But there's this one village that where 400 and something people were executed. And I don't remember the name. I should remember the name. It's a name... I remember knowing the name, but I forget. And it's like this big... and when I say 400 and something, that's the entire village was killed in Vietnam by the U.S. Army. And that one is famous because it is the process to leading up to that is fairly well documented. And when I say the process, I mean like the communications and what people were saying and how the media covered for it. And well, I'll say covered for it, even though it is what happened, but specifically how the media covered the situation in the sense that, you know, giving the news and that sort of stuff. And I think that one is famous as well because it did start the it wasn't an isolated case either, but it did start the process of really changing the public, or not changing the public's perception towards the war in the United States, but really just sort of enticing what's the word? Not manifestations. How do you say that in English? Protests. That's the word. Enticing the protests against the war and stuff like that back then. Not that I remember this because I wasn't alive, but it's a famous one, and it is so much worse than this. It's super brutal. It's like it's even thinking about it, just, you know, it's not the physical instrument. It's evil. You bet it was. What is evil? You were there? No, I was somewhere else. That's just a guess as to what this one little star on his belly might mean. I'm just a bouncer. Yeah, you're not really a scab leader, are you? Fucking mask is getting sweaty. I want to take my mask off, but... Can I have it back? Go ahead. He turns towards the gate slowly and yells, "All right now, free commerce! Keep the goods flowing!" On the photo... He shouts that because he's going back to being a scab. On the photo, in your hands, the dead man's skin is studded with stars. Tens, hundreds of them, littering his dead skin. I'm not really sure what that was for. In the sense that storytelling-wise, I know what it was for. I kept thinking about how it would characterize his character, but good. It's good that it doesn't actually characterize his character all that much. It does a little bit because we just had a huge dialogue with him, but it more than anything characterizes the character of the victim here that we are investigating, and I think that was what that was for. That whole dialogue. Now, what I'm looking for now is tasks. Now, we completed one. Ask the scab for tattoos. Not really how it goes. Help Suna with her project. Check up on Suna's project after the ravers have moved on. We could go there. We also need to talk to Andre. Return to Feld Mural and consult the wind if you don't know what to do. Other than that, keep searching the coast. Oh, dang you. Come on. It is Thursday. Also, by the way. I knew it said it somewhere. Oh, no, don't zoom it like that. It's so weird that it does that. Anyway, we're going to the Whirling in Rags because we're going to talk to the cops over here. Oh, actually, now that we're here, I think we might be able to finish. Were there? Yes, visual calculus over here. Let me get my visual calculus pens on. It has to be the pens. The pens are the funniest, right? If I'm gonna say it like that, I need to say pens. Visual calculus, right? I'm not alone in this. Come on. I know you agree with me. Because pens, what are the best? No, you actually need to say pants. You can't say trousers. I was gonna say, is it the? I was gonna say, what is the most hilarious piece of clothing that we have? And you could say pants, or you could say panties. I suppose if you're 5, it probably is the most hilarious one. But if you're not 5, then I think pants is the most hilarious one. Man, we really can't see the thing, can we? What am I looking for? Reaction speed? Visual calculus. I don't have any visual calculus pens. Can't believe that. Especially on my glasses. I have pens on my glasses. Yeah, I have pluses. I was looking for yellows. I'm sorry. So, let's see where our visual calculus is. It is a +2. Really nice. We're gonna... Oh, minus. It's minus. It sucks. Also, it was glasses, so we don't need it. Yeah, I was looking at the yellow checks, and I just did a bad. I'm very sorry. And I was wondering if it is the piece of clothing itself that is hilarious, pants. But it isn't. It's the word. Because if you say trousers, it's not as hilarious. And if you disagree with me or you have no idea what I'm talking about, then I'm sure you're not alone. I'm very sorry. Let's try this. Reconstructed the movement. Success. The tire tracks were left here by an unknown event that took place some days ago. It's a message written in the language of burned rubber. What is this? A 1960s movie where every car always skidded away? Oh boy, it's so funny. As a kid, I remember just thinking that, you know, that's what cars were supposed to sound like. Cool cars were supposed to do as they got away. You know, if you watch Knight Rider and stuff like that, it's always happens. It's just driving normally, but it's just skidding all over the place because it's all added, you know, in post, the sounds. And I remember my dad had a Peugeot 504 estate, but it's not estate. Oh, Break. Break is the name of the, like, it's what the French called their station wagons. So it was a station wagon, Peugeot 504, but it's called a Break. Either way, he had a Peugeot 504, and because it was an old car at the time already, at the time of the story that I'm talking, his belts in the cars have belts, like for example for the alternator and stuff like that. Usually is the alternator belt. In other bits and pieces that run off the engine of the car. So they have these belts that are in pulleys. Is that the term? Either way, the point is they slip sometimes, and that's the sound you sometimes hear cars make, and as they accelerate away, that are not tires screeching, that it's just really weird, annoying, super weird sound because it's just rubber slipping. And it depends on what kind of belt it is, but basically his 504 did that sound. I remember telling me at the age of like, no, I say 5, but I was probably 8 at the time, telling my cousin, no, my dad's car does this sound, because I had never talked to my cousin who was like 3 years older than I was at the time. I had never talked to him at all about movies or anything like this. We just, we played with Legos and bikes and all the normal stuff that kids do or did. I told that to him, and he wasn't old enough to understand what the sound was supposed to be. He just did not believe me. He couldn't believe me because, in his mind, even though we didn't even live in the same house or in the same household and only talked like once every 2 weeks or something like that. But he knew. He knew what I was talking about, and he didn't believe me because in his head as well, it was this sort of magical thing that only cool cars did. And I said, I swear, my dad's car screeches when does this noise when it walks off. And I knew it wasn't so in my mind, I knew exactly that it wasn't it wasn't the tires. I knew that in the movies it was the tires that did that sound, and I knew my dad's car didn't make that sound with the tires, so I knew it was wrong. But I was just sort of being bragging about something that I didn't really have a right to brag about, or any logic to brag about, really. But anyway, he didn't believe me. To this day, he's now 38, and, well, actually, he's not 38, he's 35. Is he 35? No, it's 34. Yeah, I think his birthday is coming up. The tire tracks were left here. Oh, it's the burnt rubber thingy. Some of that rubber stuck to the tiles right in front of the whirling in rags. This is point A. The driver started there, and then accelerated straight into the fence. It's funny because this car only has 2 tires. It's really funny. Oh, how would you... Yeah, this car only has 2 tires. 1 axle, I mean. Because the rear wheels would be... like if your car were like this, the rear wheels would be somewhere like this. And for you to reverse... like that, if you reversed, your rear wheels would just go like this. If your front wheels would do this, your car would just rotate again. And then accelerated straight into the fence, left a hole big enough for the Franco-Nigerian cavalry, according to the cafeteria manager. Why that pang of guilt again? Was it me who did it? It was me who did it. What happened next? The driver proceeded, because this is supposed to be an early game check, so I'm pretty sure this is this was me. This is my character. The driver proceeded to back out of the yard, barely stopping before hitting the adjacent building. Before heading south, must have been in a hurry. Yeah, this is where I started off with my motor carriage before sinking it into the sea, I say out loud. And Kim says, no wonder the cafeteria manager seemed frustrated when he was giving us directions to the yard. Well, he gestures towards the gaping hole in the fence. You did provide us with a very convenient access point to the crime scene. Yeah. I mean, I can't complain about that. Yeah, and the game... I can't complain about the game zooming out in the wrong direction. Look at that. If I zoom in or out, it just shifts the camera. This happened before. Anyway, it's still pretty early in the afternoon. So, that's not too bad. Because we can still walk around with Kim in tow. I'm aiming for somewhere around 6 p.m. That's where I'm going to go in and tell Kim basically to go home. Because that's what it amounts to. Oh, I might be able to do that check over here. Also, now that I have more skill points. I doubt it, but I doubt that I'll be able.
The Copper-Nado is back. What do you want?
I talked to Joyce. The merc you hanged, his friends are coming for you. Yeah? He doesn't seem worried. By friends, you mean his squad mates from Cornell? Wouldn't want to beat up his grandma, says Eugene. They're snickering in the room. Some of the men put their beers down. Yeah, they're forming some kind of tribunal, and they're coming for you. This is what happens if you take the law into your own hands, says Kim. Other people start doing it too. Let them come, says Glenn. He yells across the cafeteria. The Artie boys are right fucking here. You heard the man, says Titus. Right here, he points to the ground. We're armed. We got the whole district behind us, and Glenn is fucking crazy. Elaine says, yeah, a well-oiled murder machine. He punches Glenn. Not Blondie. That's not his nickname. Or maybe it is. And if it is, why is it not capitalized? Anyway, he punches Glenn on the shoulder. Yeah, the mercenaries are armed with automatic weapons. We got weapons of our own. He cracks open his vest to give you a glimpse of his holster. We got Is-There 50s, Z-Leggers. Glenn's got a knock cannon at home. Will they pierce ceramic armor? I guess we're gonna see, aren't we? That was an unsure phrasing, says our rhetoric. I am pretty sure it was. See what? That they don't? Yeah, like you've been up against ceramic armor. He takes a sip of beer to bide his time and then tries to get the last word in. Ooh! I misclicked. I'm very sorry. I double-clicked. I was thinking. I was gonna say. I wonder if me having stolen the ceramic boots
The Copper-nado is
allows me to
What do you want?
do some tests in here. You know. Let's press space instead of clicking on things. They have automatic weapons. Will they pierce? That they don't. You haven't even seen the whole suit, right? I've seen the whole fucking thing, and it didn't make him immortal. That is true, actually. Well, but he didn't have it on. Apart from his boots. He never took the boots off. This kernel is bad news. You know that, right? A spray of beer. So were the local gangs. The fucking Barmy Army and the Madras scum. They've been out there. Seen any around? Yeah, says Elaine. Where are they now, huh? He points south. Sent back to Madre in an airtight cargo crate. These people are trained military professionals. Special forces, as you said. They're not a gang or a Barmy Army. Nah, they're not. They're uncoordinated and drunk. Don't forget we're listening in on their communications. Their shit is way apart. Oh. Well, Dress said they're gone rogue. Nobody's controlling them. Big fucking surprise, he mutters. They hire psycho scum, arm them to the teeth, and let them loose in the city. What do you think is gonna happen? Okay, I'm gonna conclude with a shrug. What do you mean, okay? He jerks forward a bit. What do I mean, okay, actually? They're going to wipe you the fuck out. You got this. I'll be on your side when they come. You got one more gun on your side. Yeah, I mean, once you got one more gun on your side. Once I find mine. I lost it. We don't need you or your lost gun. We have all our guns. He almost splashes his beer at you. We'll just use those if it's okay with you. Lost gun or not, you're going to need help. The lieutenant looks Titus in the eye. We're offering it. Okay, I accept the offer. The man cracks his shoulder. But I'll believe it when I see it. He appreciates it, but can only accept it conditionally. No check on that window yet. Window yet? But we do have the end of the episode. So for right now, I'm Colonel RPG, and this has been Disco Elysium. I really hope you've enjoyed it. And if you did, go ahead and leave a comment, like the video if you want to see the next episode come out sooner rather than later. But above all, thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you next episode. Bye-bye.